Bowls buddies, good morning and welcome to another Friday and another episode of Ask Andy. You'll notice that I'm in my man cave again, which should tell you that the planned trip to Heaton Park didn't happen. I never got a call or an email to confirm that it was going ahead, so hopefully that might happen another time. Unfortunately, it didn't happen this week. So, I'm here. And before we get into it, I need to give somebody a shout out. And I haven't done a shout out before. I feel all important all of a sudden. Bear with me. I've got my phone, because my memory's just shot at the minute. And it's a guy called Gary Nicholson. So shout out to Gary Nicholson from the Walsgrave in Coventry. And I was there a few years ago for the Junior All England, and I remember it pretty well because it's the only bowls competition I've ever been to where we had to stop play to sweep the green of leaves. It was that windy. Amazing. Remember it pretty well, actually. I remember we didn't get invited to stop for a meal after, unlike Mr. Steve Davis. He had the full Monty and the on the carvery. I think I had a sausage roll on a service station on the way home, but happier times nonetheless. So I had to get that out of the way. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for all the comments I've had this week. There's been lots, and this programme is connected to an email I received on Monday from a bowler I know fairly well, from Haslingden. A guy called Derek Sowerby, and all I'm going to say to you is law 4.4a. Now some of you might be getting shivers down your spine now, others you might be oblivious, but we'll have a chat about it and lead it in to some of the dark arts of the Crown Green game, and if I can give you a few tips on maybe how not to break the laws of the game but still may be able to, I don't know how to put this nicely. It's not all about sending them. I keep saying it. It's an absolute battle of wits, these Crown Green bowls. It doesn't only test your skill, it also tests your mental strength and also how you can deal with people, because there's nobody stranger than a Crown Green bowler. That's all I'll say to you. So, thanks for watching. Remember, if you like the video, guys, please smash that like button, because it all helps the channel. And if you're not already a bowls buddy, please click the subscribe button and hit that notification bell for notifications of new content on this channel. Got it out of the way. Fantastic. So, I have got an old Crown Green handbook, because it's a couple of years old is this rule, and I'm not going to give you the email that Derek sent me, but it reminded me of an incident that happened when I was watching Karen play in a ladies competition at Ossett Flying Horse, probably 4 years ago, maybe 5, not exactly sure the date, but I remember what happened like it was yesterday. I'm going to read out to you Rule 4.4a. It's since been changed, thankfully, but here we go. And it's all about setting a mark. 4.4a. Verbal objection to a mark set by the leader must be made by the leader's opponent only after the first ball has come to rest. Otherwise, the leader may have the jack and ball, if played, return to have another attempt at setting a mark. An opponent objecting to a mark must make an indication that an objection has been made. So, to me, that's pretty clear. It's all about when you set the mark, the only person who can object to it is the person who hasn't sent the jack out, and it must be made after the jack and ball has come to stop. Otherwise, the leader of the jack can have his jack and ball back and send it again. Bear that in mind. So, Karen is drawn to play a nice old lady. I didn't know her. If I bumped into her on the street now, I wouldn't know her. Let's call her Doris for the sake of this video. So Karen's playing Doris. They play a few ends, and I'm marking the card, because that's what you do, and the ball towards me, and Doris gets in, picks the jack up, and sends the jack about 15 yards. And she turns to Karen and says, "Oh, I don't think that's a mark, do you?" And Karen says, "No, I don't think it is." "Oh, I'll get it back then." And she walks up to the jack, takes it back, and Karen's sort of waiting for her to hand the jack over, and she sends it out again. And sends the ball, and Karen's looking at me. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. So they play that end, and Karen gets in, and Karen sends the jack back towards me. And I said, "Excuse me, are we not counting that end previous to this? Was that just a practice end?" And Doris comes on. She says, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you can't do what you did. You can't just pick the jack up and send it out again." "Yes, I can. It's in the rules," says Doris. 4.4a. And my friend's a referee and she knows all about it. And then next minute, Doris's friend, let's call her Mildred, comes over. She says, "I'm a referee and what she's done there is absolutely perfectly right in the rules." And she's thrust this rule book under my nose. And I read it. I said, "I don't know what you think it means, but that rule doesn't entertain that whatsoever." I said, "And if you think that that's right, what's just happened, you need to take your referee's badge back and say, I can't do this job anymore because I don't understand the laws of the game." And they're adamant that it was okay because Karen had said it wasn't a mark before the woman had sent the ball, so that means she could have it back. It all seemed a bit strange to me because, as far as I'm aware, there's nothing in the rules of the game that allows two attempts at setting a mark, unless, of course, jack up, your ball gets hit, a ball stops in your way, that sort of thing. That's a different matter altogether. But to have 2 goals at setting a mark, not in the rules. That hasn't been in the rules for many, many years. So anyway, I just kept quiet and Karen got on with it. She got a bit flustered for a few ends, but she won. And then I wrote to the referee society, and they confirmed that there was this misunderstanding amongst a certain proportion of bowlers and that they were looking into it. And I actually tried to get a rule through the Greater Manchester County to get it amended. Now, thankfully, now if you look at the rules of the game on the website, it's been changed. That pesky comma before the otherwise caused a lot of problems. So now it says, "Objection to a mark set by the leader can only be made by the leader's opponent after the first ball has come to rest." So it's got rid of the ambiguity straight away. If the opponent objects before the leader's first ball has come to rest, the leader may have the jack and ball, if played, return to have another attempt at setting the mark. Okay? So again, ambiguity cleared up. Only the opponent can object to the mark. Again, removing all ambiguity. An opponent objecting to a mark must make a clear indication that the objection has been made. So now, absolutely clear as a bell that you can't have 2 goals at setting a mark, whether your opponent says, "Oh, I don't think that's a mark," or not, or if you turn to your opponent and say, "Can I have it back?" It's not the leader's position to say, "I don't think that's a mark." It's not up to you. If I'm playing you, whoever's watching out there, and you decide to send the jack 15 yards, that's entirely up to you. I'll decide if we're going to play to it or not after you've sent your first ball. You as a leader, you have a few options. If you don't think it's a mark, you can strike the jack off and start again. You can play a good ball and see what happens. You can play a bad ball and maybe give me room to get in. But I'm not sure why you'd do that, to be honest. But your options are limited. You can't say, "I don't think that's a mark, I'm going to give you the jack." I might want to play 15 yards. It's not up to you. It's up to your opponent. And where I'm going with this is that I've had this a lot over the years. You've got people who seem to look at rules and they read something and come to an amazing conclusion that means you can have 2 goals at setting a mark. for instance. But yet, you ask one of the very basic things, like, you know, you ball out a turn, and you have a 10-minute argument that it's a dead ball, when of course it isn't. You just get it back and play it again in the correct order. The basics of the game, the rules that everyone seems to know, they don't know. They don't fully. If you do something wrong, it's a dead ball. It's a dead ball. It's not. Not always a dead ball. If you play your opponent's ball, yes, it's a dead ball. If you play out a turn, you get the ball back and play it in turn. And these are the things where we start talking about black art that sometimes spill over. So, I've seen good players when the opponent sent the jack off, they've got the jack back, they've sent the jack out, and before the opponent can say anything, they've sent the ball out. Gives them an extra practice ball, and it's totally in the rules. They can do that. They just get the ball back and play it when they should do. Bit naughty, I agree, but it's in the rules. You'll get players in league game. Oh, you can't run after balls. You can't. It's in the rules. You're not allowed to run after balls. You're not allowed within a metre. That rule hasn't been around for years, and it just causes a bit of ill feeling, you know, when you have these arguments. But you've not got to let it bother you. That's the difficulty. So, next thing, the number of times I've been called different names. The worst one I ever got called was Stephen. All game, Stephen. Do I look like a Stephen? No. And this guy was adamant I was called Stephen. But that didn't bother me. What did used to bother me was when I was playing good players. You know, they'd maybe call me Andy or Andrew or AC or whatever. One person always called me Drew. And that used to make me go mental. Not lose my temper, but he nagged away at me because he'd call me Drew, and I'm like, it's not Drew, it's Andrew. And you tell him, and he eats away at you. And he was doing that on purpose, absolutely on purpose. Why wouldn't he have done it? He knew it upset me. It wasn't so bad that I'd have a stand-up argument with him. You know, maybe he's got family called Andrew that they do call Drew, and it's one of those things, but it used to rile me up, and I'd get so angry about it I could never beat him. And it was only as I grew up and realised what he was doing that I could move past it. So that is a little bit of a black art for you. I know players that they want to be called something. I don't want to name names, but I'm probably going to have to do. Take somebody completely random called Gerald, who insists on being called Gerald. Well, you don't know that, do you? So you call him Jerry. Straight away, you've upset him. Bowlers don't play too well when they're upset, in my experience. And you're not being nasty. You don't know he wants to be called Gerald, do you? Until he tells you the third time you play him. So, all these little things, just at the start of a game, you can just sort of get a dig in somewhere. Just put, so, you know, somebody called Bill. Always, everyone calls him Bill. You call him Billy. Might not bother him, but you're doing something, aren't you? Not exactly cheating, but a little naughty maybe. I remember playing a guy, after those new mats came in, you know, the dimples on the bottom stop them slipping. I just thought I'd try it, so at one end I tossed the mat in, dimple side up, and I noticed that he turned it over, so I thought, right, okay. So every time I either tossed the mat in or put the mat down to send the jack out, I made sure it was dimple side up. And he hated it. He absolutely hated it. And he went. Over a few ends, it didn't take long, he was that bothered about the mat being the right way up, he couldn't bowl anymore. And again, it's a black art. And is it wrong that you do these things? I don't know. I know that some of my ex-teammates at a certain club in Manchester would consider that not even trying to do anything wrong. So I'm trying to think of a few more for you. So the map was a good one. Oh dear. I've played a few people in lower league games in particular on my home green, and they'll send the jack out, not show me the peg, and just say finger. Jack goes out, and you know that it's not finger. You know they've gone thumb, and they send the bold thumb, and they're amazed when you go thumb as well, because you should have gone finger, because that's what they told them, and that just seems weird. It's that to me is wrong. I think that's cheating, but you certainly shouldn't get caught out on your home green, that's for sure. And I'm amazed at the number of players that you play on their home green and they're not sure what bias you've gone with the jack. I mean, if you don't own your home green, you're going to be struggling elsewhere. I've played good players that'll only go finger peg. Don't know why. They'll only go finger peg. Maybe it suits their delivery or whatever. So it's obvious what you do. You go everywhere thumb. So if they want to go finger, it's up to them to find their way in, isn't it? So what I'm saying is, you also need to be observant about your opponent. You know, does he only ever play a straight peg? Because if that's the case, guess what you do? Yeah, you go everywhere round peg, over the crown preferably. So little things like that maybe you've never really thought about, or these things pass you by. Especially at the start of the game, the first 5 or 6 ends, you know, you should be able to work out the strengths of your opponent, because obviously at the start of the game you try and go for your best marks, I would say. You know, so if you're playing a corner play, it's obvious that when he gets in, he's going to go as far as he can. And so after, certainly, 5, 6 ends, you should have a good idea what your opponent's game plan is. You should also have worked out what his delivery is like. And this is something that a lot of players miss. Not everyone is perfectly straight in the delivery. I know I'm not. I can think of a few players that are, but usually, you know, your delivery path is either straight, so your arm goes back on a straight line and comes forward on a straight line, or your arm goes out from your body and comes across your body when you let go of the jack, so out to in, or your arm will come behind your back slightly and then push out away from your body, and that's in to out. So most bowlers fall into, I would say 99% of bowlers fall in those 3 categories. You should be able to work out very, very quickly which one your opponent is in, and from there that can determine what sort of marks you play. For instance, I'm an out to in. I go across myself quite a bit, so if I'm playing an in to out player, that's brilliant for me, because I know there's marks that my opponent will never be able to follow me on, not in a million years, and there might be a yard difference in road. So I'm always thinking about that. I'm also thinking about where my opponent has played. You know, what parts of the green do they like going to? What peg do they like going in? Because it's amazing the number of bowlers who will get stuck on a mark, or get stuck against an opponent and get in, and go back to where their original mark started. So if they lose the end, they're back on the mark. Like I say, bowls is not all about sending them. It's not all about getting them close. It's a battle of wits. It's a memory test. It's 2 people really trying to find ways to beat each other within the rules of the game, and not trying to fall out too much, unless you don't care, and then, you know, fall out with whoever. I know when I was 15, 16, 17, just starting out in the competition circuit, it wasn't it wasn't a competition if I didn't fall out with somebody. Obviously those times are long gone, but it seemed to be a more aggressive game back in the 80s and 90s, and you wasn't all pally with everyone. And maybe it's because we were playing for more money at the time that you were a bit more aggressive. But that's certainly when I started seeing a lot of things that I'd never realised happened in bowls before. You know, you play in the juniors and you just play, you just get on with the games. But as you grow up and you come across a more varied opposition, all of a sudden you see these tactics coming in that you've never really come across, and just made you think totally differently about how you play the game sometimes. I find that's what makes the game for me. It's fascinating. I like sitting on the side of a green watching, and I'm not always watching the bowls. I do a lot of people watching and how they interact or don't interact. You'll see a lot of players never talk to one another, which is fine. That's the way I like to play. Just get on with it. I'll be friendly off the green if you want, but not on it. And you'll come across players who are always nattering. Now, again, I think that's deliberate because they want you to start talking and get your mind out of the game. They're quite happy to talk. That's how they're used to bowling. You might not be. And I've said to one or two in the past, you know, if you want to talk, we'll talk afterwards. But right now, we're bowling. You know, let's leave the nattering out. And I think a lot of the natterers want you to join in, and they know they've got you then. Now, there's two ways you can go about it. You can either join in with them if it doesn't bother you, or just tell them to shut up, or ignore them. You've also got people who are the opposite. They're really, really, you know, even if it calling for measures, they don't speak to you. You don't know who's in, and it's almost like 20 questions. You're trying to get it out of them. What do you think? They're difficult. They're very difficult people to play against. But it's just how people are. And if they can upset you in any way, then they will do. So that's why I keep saying to you, it's not all about sending them. For me, it's a battle of wits. Real battle of wits. And a lot of the game is played in the head. Memory tests. Where have we been? What marks have we played? What did I score last time we went down there? You know, I know that there's bowlers. Gary Ellis is a prime example. He'll play an end and forget about it. But deep down, he's remembering. Last time we went down there, I got in. And after the game, he'll probably be able to talk you through it. But he's just in that moment, forget about it. And I think all good players have this innate quality to remember where they've been in a game and what's happened and where they've been. And they can use that information to pick the best mark to play against whoever they're playing at the time. Good players have to have a bowling brain. You know, you don't have to necessarily be clever or have a degree or anything like that, but you have to have a bowling brain and be able to pick things up almost surreptitiously to log away. You know, a lot of these things you only pick up after playing players a few times, but you can almost immediately pick up, you know, the delivery types, favourite marks, things like that. The cuter things, they develop with time, and you know, you might have to play them quite a bit. I remember this one guy, very slow player anyway, and I've only ever played him in 31 up competition, which is a disaster. I mean, instead of a 45-minute hour game, you're looking at an hour and a half straight away. Now for me, I struggled concentrating for that length of time. And the first time we played, nice hot summer's day, and every couple of ends we'd go and have a little drink at the side of the green. Usually when I was about to send the jack out, go, hang on a minute, go and get a drink. Call for pegs when There was no need for pegs, it was obvious who was in. But these were just ways to slow me down, because he knew I was a fast player or quickish player and wanted to get on, and I was just getting more and more and more irate. And he knew he was getting to me, and he beat me comfortably. But I learnt from that. I learnt a lot from that. What I should have done is, when he called for measures, I should have gone to the side of the green and sat down and had a drink and, just relaxed a little bit and not let it bother me. The next time I played him was in another 31 competition, and it was this drizzly type of rain. And he came out looking like Nanook of the North. He must have had 10 layers of clothing on. And I got off to a good start. And funnily enough, when I had the jack, he kept saying, I just need to go and take my coat off. And so he had to wait. And then he'd come back a couple of ends later, I just need to go and take my waterproof bottoms off. Now the weather hadn't changed, it was still drizzling, and he must have gone off the green maybe 10 times in the first 20 ends. But I didn't let it bother me. I got sort of mentally prepared for the fact that this was going to be a long game and that I was going to have to put up with it. And I won comfortably, really, in the end. But he went off so many times, he actually got stripped down to his jeans and a t-shirt, and then slowly started putting them all back on again. And the weather had never changed throughout the game. So again, just some people set out with these game plans, and you've just got to be careful. So I think I've waffled on enough there. This is probably nearly 25 minutes, and I could always talk for longer, but I don't want to get it too boring. So that's just talk about a rule that used to be abused quite a bit, from what I can gather, and a few of the little, cuter things that go on in bowls. Maybe you can relate to them. If they do, please send me a comment and we can talk about it some more. You've got to go out there and play the way you want to play, and don't let other players dictate to you how you do things. As long as you play to the rules, you're not doing anything wrong. You just play your game and enjoy it. That's the thing that I struggle with the most nowadays, is enjoying bowling. Hopefully he'll come back and I will enjoy it one day again, but that's the only reason we do things, isn't it, for enjoyment. So I'm going to leave it there. I'll see you on Monday. I've got a few things to talk about on Monday. Bowling sort of getting back to some level of normality, which is great. And no doubt there'll be lots of you going on the green this weekend. So if you do on the green, guys, please stay safe, and I'll see you on the other side.